If the power grid goes down tomorrow, the grocery store shelves will completely empty in exactly 3 days. That $15 steak you gladly pay for? Gone. Right now, the modern fool is trusting a fragile, digitized supply chain that is one massive power outage away from total collapse. But for thousands of years, humans did not beg the government for emergency rations. They did not rely on supply wagons of fresh meat to build muscle, sustain massive families, or survive brutal, endless winters. They relied on poor man's meat. Today, we are opening the vault on 8 historical protein crops that can replace your dependence on commercial meat forever. In this breakdown, item number 3 was treated as a highly classified wartime asset by global military powers. And item number 8 is an ancient, unkillable phantom bean that thrives in triple-digit heat without a single drop of rain. Science now proves these nitrogen-fixing biological miracles heal the dead earth while feeding your family for pennies. Let us dig in. Number 1. The Roman engine. Imagine the absolute brutal frost of an alpine pass. Roman soldiers marching thousands of miles from the heart of the empire, carrying incredibly heavy armor through the blinding snow. They did not rely on vulnerable supply lines of livestock to maintain their devastating physical strength. The logistics of moving cattle across frozen mountains would have bankrupted the military. Instead, every single soldier carried a small leather pouch filled with a tiny, unassuming dried disc. This was the lentil. It was the biological engine of an empire, providing a dense matrix of complex carbohydrates and muscle-building protein that stored beautifully in the dark for decades without rotting. Modern clinical studies now suggest these tiny legumes violently stabilize blood sugar and function as an ancestral anchor for human gut health, acting as an internal biological shield against the toxic, hyper-processed foods of our modern era. But the true undeniable magic of the lentil is its ruthless economic efficiency. It is the ultimate lazy crop for the smart steward. It demands absolutely zero heavy fertilization. It literally draws raw nitrogen straight from the atmosphere and injects it directly into your depleted soil. Let us look at the brutal economic conversion. A mere 100 square feet of marginal low-quality yard space yields up to 30 pounds of dry, harvestable lentils. That is a direct caloric replacement for $150 of expensive store-bought beef every single winter. And because they store perfectly in oxygen-free Mylar bags for over 30 years, you are not just growing dinner, you are printing your own biological currency. You can store lentils for decades in a dark cellar. But what happens when the snow completely buries your property and you are trapped inside a freezing one-room cabin for 5 grueling months? Number 2. The Pioneer's Vault. Step into the heavy leather boots of a homesteader in the bitter winter of 1914. The wind is howling violently through the wooden floorboards. The nearest general store is a treacherous 3-day ride on horseback, and the mountain trails are completely impassable. For these families, survival was not an internet hobby. It was a daily, unforgiving mathematical equation. If you ran out of calories, you died. The absolute backbone of their winter survival was a calorie-dense vault that kept their children alive until the spring thaw finally broke the frozen earth. I am talking about the pinto bean. It is biologically indestructible when kept dry in the pantry. It is heavily packed with folate, iron, and potassium. In the historical apothecary of the wild frontier, a heavy bowl of pinto bean stew was the primary proven mechanism for preventing winter anemia and keeping the human body's internal core furnace burning hot. It thrives in the moderate heat of late summer, rapidly producing massive clusters of hanging pods before the first killing freeze ever hits. The math behind this pioneer staple is absolutely staggering. A single $3 packet of heirloom seeds transforms into over 150 pounds of dense, winter-proof calories. By replacing your commercial ground beef with this ancestral protein, you are instantly saving a family $400 in a single winter season. It is a massive, guaranteed return on investment that bypasses government inflation entirely. But while the Pioneer's Vault conquered the untamed American frontier, another crop was quietly being mobilized across the ocean to feed massive industrial armies during the apocalypse of global war. Number 3. The ration of empires. Do not think of the heavily processed, genetically modified, chemical-laden commercial version you see in modern supermarkets. I want you to think of the historical, ancient heirloom variety utilized during global military rationing. During the great global conflicts of the 20th century, international shipping lines were severed by submarines. Meat was strictly rationed. Governments panicked. But one crop stepped directly into the void: treated almost like a classified wartime asset, because it contains a completely perfect amino acid profile. It is one of the rare plants on planet Earth that genuinely mimics the exact biological building blocks of livestock. This is the heirloom soybean. Historically, it was fermented into complex pastes and thick broths, providing deep, savory, life-saving nutrition when the city butcher shops were completely empty. It is fiercely adaptable. It is capable of producing massive, towering vegetative canopies that completely smother out invasive weeds, requiring almost zero manual weeding from an exhausted gardener. It protects the topsoil, shades the delicate microbiome, and violently fixes nitrogen into the earth. The financial dominance of the heirloom soybean is entirely unmatched in the agricultural world. A tiny, microscopic fraction of your land, just 1/10 of an acre, yields 400 pounds of complete, highly digestible protein that substitutes a staggering $800 of commercial meat over a full calendar year. It is a generational yield that completely outpaces any pathetic grocery store loyalty program. Yet, as incredible as that crop is for wartime yields, it still requires a moderate rainy season to swell its pods. But what if the rain simply never comes? What if the earth cracks open? Number 4. The Levantine Fortress. Picture the ancient, sun-baked, terraced mountains of the Levant, a region historically defined by punishing heat, rocky, unforgiving soil, and relentless multi-year droughts. When ancient walled cities were besieged by enemy armies and completely cut off from the outside world, their underground granaries were anchored by a survival fortress packed into a tiny, golden sphere. This crop does not just tolerate extreme drought, it actually expects it. I am talking about the chickpea. It possesses a deep, aggressive taproot that violently punches through hardpan clay, searching for hidden microscopic moisture deep within the Earth's crust. It pulls up vital trace minerals that shallow-rooted supermarket vegetables simply cannot reach, making it a biological powerhouse of magnesium and dietary fiber. It is the ultimate anti-fragile crop, thriving in brutal conditions that would cause modern hybrid corn to instantly wither, turn brown, and die. The economic shield of the chickpea is brilliant. A simple 20-foot row planted in the corner of your yard delivers enough dense caloric mass to replace 50 pounds of premium organic chicken. That keeps $200 securely locked in your pocket, shielded entirely from grocery store price hikes and diesel fuel surcharges. It is a silent, unkillable insurance policy planted directly in your backyard. Pause. Stop the list. Think about what you are watching for a second. Look at the reality of the room you are sitting in right now. In 1914, when the globe plunged into absolute chaotic warfare, there were no digital bank accounts to save people. There were no overnight delivery services. When the Great War erupted, the modern systems failed almost overnight. Today, we are entirely, dangerously dependent on a highly fragile grid of diesel trucks, digital banking ledgers, and global shipping routes controlled by politicians who do not know your name. If the electrical grid falls tomorrow, your digitized stock portfolio will not put a single calorie on your family's table. You cannot eat an investment app. We have happily traded the unshakable generational security of the ancestral garden for the highly brittle illusion of modern convenience. You must relearn the old ways. You must consciously step back into the lineage of survival before the choice is made for you. Now, let us return to the earth. Because while the chickpea survives the blistering heat of the desert sun, our next crop conquers something far more terrifying. The killing freeze. Number 5. The medieval icebreaker. Imagine the biting, lethal cold of the 14th century. The ground is frozen solid like concrete. The livestock has already been slaughtered because there is no winter fodder left, and the village granaries are running terrifyingly low. Men and women stared out at endless, blinding landscapes of snow, knowing true starvation was just weeks away. But bursting violently through the semi-frozen earth was a biological anomaly. This extreme cold-hardy protein actually prefers to be planted in the dead of winter, or the absolute earliest freezing days of spring. Meet the fava bean. It acts as a literal biological snowplow. It generates massive, hollow, tree-like stalks that aggressively break up compacted, frozen soil. Modern clinical studies point to its rich, natural concentration of L-dopa, a direct chemical precursor to dopamine in the human brain, making it a highly documented historical mood stabilizer during the long, dark, miserable days of seasonal winter depression. It is literally biological food for the brain when the sun refuses to shine. The return on investment is brutally effective. A quarter acre of marginal freezing cold soil produces over 200 pounds of nitrogen-rich pods, but the real savings happen invisibly beneath the soil. It fixes so much raw atmospheric nitrogen that it cuts your spring fertilizer cost to absolute zero, saving you up to $600 a year in toxic soil amendments, while easily feeding a family of 4 for 6 solid months. You can survive the freezing cold if you have land. But what if you live in an apartment? What if you have absolutely no yard, no dirt, and the snow is already 10 feet high outside your window? Number 6. The jar-sprouted miracle. During the devastating flood-inducing monsoons of ancient Asia, and later adapted by hardcore winter preppers across the globe, this seed provided an instantaneous biological loophole. When the soil is entirely off-limits, you do not need a farm, you just need a cheap glass jar. This seed is the undisputed global king of rapid winter nutrition, capable of generating explosive life in the darkest, most forgotten corners of your kitchen cabinet. It is the mung bean. It is heavily packed with live enzymes, highly bioavailable vitamin C, and vital antioxidants. When scurvy, malnutrition, and heavy winter lethargy threatened historical homesteaders, sprouting these seeds was the absolute fastest way to inject fresh, living medicine directly back into the human bloodstream. The mung bean requires zero sunlight to begin its journey. It requires zero soil. It requires only tap water, and exactly 3 days of your time. The economic conversion here is pure, undeniable magic. 1 single cup of dried mung beans explodes into 3 massive pounds of fresh, living greens in just 96 hours. You are generating $50 worth of premium, fresh organic produce in the dead of winter for absolute pennies. It is instantaneous, lazy dominance over the commercial food supply chain. Sprouts provide the immediate, indoor victory. But when the spring finally comes, what if your land has been completely destroyed? What if your dirt is nothing but barren, dead, blowing sand? Number 7. The Dust Bowl Savior. Travel back with me to the devastating apocalyptic dust storms of the American South in the 1930s. The precious topsoil had literally blown away into the sky. The earth was dead. Bankrupted farmers were staring at endless miles of sterile, lifeless sand. Nothing would grow. Families were starving. Except for one miraculous survivor that actually thrives in absolute biological poverty, known to many as the black-eyed pea or the cowpea. It forms a highly complex symbiotic relationship with microscopic bacteria in the dead soil, pulling nitrogen out of thin air and aggressively injecting it directly into the sterile sand. It literally creates its own fertilizer out of nothing. It grows low to the ground, creating a dense, impenetrable living mulch that rapidly cools the earth and traps whatever microscopic moisture is left in the dirt. It is a true nutritional anchor, heavily relied upon in the Deep South to feed massive families on literally zero budget. The financial math is undeniable. The cowpea generates 50 pounds of shelled premium protein from the most barren, sandy, useless soil you can possibly imagine, sparing you the $300 you would have desperately spent on chemical fertilizers and imported bags of expensive topsoil. It heals the broken earth, while shielding your bank account from crippling inflation. But there is one environment harsher than the suffocating dust bowl. A place where the blistering sun turns the earth to cracked glass. A place where no rain falls for 6 straight months. Enter the absolute boss item of survival agriculture. Number 8. The Desert Phantom. Deep in the unforgiving Sonoran Desert, where the ambient heat regularly exceeds 110 degrees Fahrenheit, there exists a biological anomaly that defies modern science. This ancient, completely unkillable desert protein literally laughs at extreme drought. Native American tribes relied on this phantom crop for thousands of years. When the massive rivers dried up, and every other cultivated plant withered to dead dust, this crop quietly, stubbornly pushed out its calorie-dense pods. This is the tepary bean. It possesses highly specialized leaves that physically fold up during the absolute hottest part of the afternoon to lock in moisture and prevent water loss. It requires completely different farming techniques, thriving exclusively on the single, fleeting, violent rainfall of the late monsoon season, using that one single drink of water to sustain its entire life cycle. In terms of survival medicine, it is heavily concentrated in calcium and complex starches, providing a slow-burning, enduring energy that prevents dangerous physical fatigue in brutal, relentless climates. This is the ultimate, untouchable inflation shield. The tepary bean yields over 100 pounds of indestructible protein per quarter acre, with absolutely zero artificial irrigation. It forever ends your pathetic reliance on a fragile municipal water grid. saving you thousands of dollars in skyrocketing water bills and lost, withered crops over a lifetime. It is the undisputed king of survival agriculture. Do not just listen to this list, close the app and go back to sleep. You must build your own decentralized biological grid immediately. Here is your 4-step survival framework. Step 1. Fast wins. Start with mung beans in a jar on your kitchen counter today to build mental morale and secure immediate vitamins. Step 2. Calorie anchors. Plant heavy, dense yields of pinto and lentils this season to guarantee your absolute winter security. Step 3. Perennials. Plant self-seeding, aggressive crops that return every single year without your physical labor, acting as your ultimate biological insurance policy. And Step 4. Legacy. Plant the medicinal herbs and deep-rooted nut trees that will physically feed your grandchildren long after the modern supply chain is just a fading memory. The grocery stores will not save you, the government will not feed you. When the delivery trucks finally stop forever, your backyard will either be a mass graveyard of dead grass or an impenetrable fortress of calories. If you want to plant once and harvest for decades without ever stepping foot inside a grocery store again, you need to watch this video right here about the unbreakable perennial crops that outlive generations. Click it right now on your screen and take back your food sovereignty before it is too late. Click here, I will see you inside.